Day 3 of Arizona teacher walkout. Educators at the state capitol dig in. The thousands of educators convened at the state capitol on Monday for the third day of the #Red for Ed walkout had a message for lawmakers. They're digging in. I would like, Gov. Doug, Ducey to actually sit down with you, Chariti Hamlett, a school psychologist in Mesa Public Schools, said. Many of the teachers echoed that refrain, that they just want the governor to talk to Arizona Educators United leaders. The walkout brought thousands to the Capitol for its third day of rallies, displacing hundreds of thousands of students from the classroom. Protests will continue Tuesday and Wednesday. Numerous districts notified parents Monday afternoon of ongoing closures. Monday's rally drew a larger crowd than Friday. About 10,000 showed up, according to the Arizona Department of Public Safety, compared with Friday's estimate of 4,000. Monday afternoon's weather was a little more friendly to the demonstrators in red. By 1 p.m., crowds had barely thinned out. Many of the educators had arrived as early as 6:30 a.m. to offer a boisterous good morning to arriving lawmakers. One man in red with a megaphone told a reporter that he would be staying until a budget bill drops. As noon rolled around, educators were getting restless. Lawmakers inside were reportedly preparing to introduce a budget that would increase funding for school districts, but little was known outside about what the budget would include. A handful began to march, signs raised high in the air, chanting, "Where is Ducey? It's frustrating because he's obviously accessible and we haven't been able to get that meeting," Noah Carvelis, one of the Arizona Educators United leaders, said. "I'm still waiting on my chance to meet with him." The choice to walk out was not an easy one to make, Gilbert teachers Heather Glass and Barbara Runes said. They cried on their last day of school before the walkout began. "We just want adequate funding for education for our children," Glass said. Sitting near a makeshift tailgate run by teachers from Webster Elementary in Mesa, Hamlett and Mary King watched as colleagues grilled hot dogs and veggie burgers, smoke rising above them. King said that the governor's proposed plan, which he'd promised would deliver enough money to districts to give teachers a 20% pay raise by the year 2020, is unethical if it takes money away from other programs. "I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul," she said. King is a Republican who has taught for 40 years, mostly at Webster where she now teaches special education. It bothers her that opponents have said the movement is about politics. It bothers her that they've said teachers walking out don't care about the children they teach. Gov. Ducey says he's getting along with teachers and he's not, she said. To blame it on politics is totally inaccurate. Teachers at the Capitol were signing petitions to get a proposal on the ballot in November to fund education by raising income taxes on Arizonans who earn more than $250,000 a year. It's basically tax the rich to pay teachers, organizer Carlos Garcia, of One Arizona, explained to a potential supporter visiting the table. Garcia said the group had just picked up their petition sheets from the printer and set up the table. "They're still warm." He said people at the protests were rushing to sign them. The Invest in Education Act would allow funding to cover full-day kindergarten and pay raises for student support personnel, backers said. It also would require teacher and personnel input to governing boards on how to spend the funds. Ballot initiatives require 150,642 signatures by July 5 to qualify for the ballot. The Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry has condemned the initiative and said it would fight it if it secures a spot on the ballot. People stood in lines all over the Capitol around a circle of portable toilets, for a fry bread food truck and even to witness legislators in action. Jackie Chavez, a parent in the Tucson Unified District, stood in the line of about 24 waiting to sit in the state Senate gallery. Chavez is the parent of a senior in high school. She came up from Tucson to support teachers in the walkout. She said she doles out thousands of dollars every year to help teachers stock classrooms with supplies. She said both she and her daughter know the walkout could affect graduation. "This is something amazing that's going on," Chavez said. A brief moment of tension marked the peaceful afternoon as a small faction of #Red for Ed supporters and opponents argued. The counter-protester, with a gun holstered at her hip, was arguing about education funding and immigration. The argument dispersed with no apparent physical confrontation, and the crowd of educators surrounding the argument started loudly chanting, "Don't feed the troll." There were very few counter-protesters at the Capitol. Several were identified as members of Patriot Movement as, a controversial grassroots group whose members posted a photo with Gov. Ducey over the weekend. The governor faced backlash for the photo. U.S. Representative Raul Grijalva was among the speakers at an Arizona Federation of Teachers news conference on a grassy lawn near the Capitol. Grijalva rebuked President Donald Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," saying that it was time to go back to the time when funding public education was valued. "This is not about making this nation great again," Grijalva said. "This is about returning to the values that made this nation great." The crowd at that news conference was markedly smaller than the masses clustering closer to the Capitol. The AFT is not the state's dominant teachers' union, playing second fiddle to the local branch of the National Education Association. Randi Weingarten, AFT's national president, was the main speaker. Before her talk, Weingarten told the Arizona Republic that she came to the state because her members asked her. She said there's a lot of skepticism over Ducey's number 20 by 2020 deal mounting among the human shield of teachers gathering at the Capitol because the governor hasn't brought enough teachers or movement leaders to the table. "We have to get past the polarization and demagoguery that had been used as an excuse not to fund schools," she said. "Schooling is not a red issue or a blue issue, it's an American issue." 3 teachers spoke. One said her district just got wireless internet. Another said her classroom sometimes swelled to 40 and even 50 children. "We go day to day without basic supplies," Danielle Cervantes, a first-grade teacher at a Title I school, told the crowd of about 100. The daily Capitol crowd of educators and supporters in red has morphed into an almost festival-like atmosphere that one person termed Edchella, in reference to the popular Coachella music festival. The lawns facing the main Capitol building turned into a scrum of pop-up tents, many serving as a de facto home base for certain schools and districts. The educators came prepared with food, water, felt-tipped markers and extra poster board for anyone who needed it. In the middle of it all sat third-grade teachers Carol Johnson and Beverly Tremblay. The 2 women both teach at Bernard Black Elementary in the Roosevelt district. Johnson said she didn't want to be there. She wants to be back in her classroom and she's optimistic about the governor's plan. But both women agree, it's disheartening that Ducey won't meet with leaders. They don't want to leave until the teachers' demands are met. "We want to believe our government is doing something for us," Tremblay said. Johnson's school year began with 34 students in her classroom. "That's too many," she said. "We don't have enough support staff," Johnson said. "Most times, the tech is failing. While parents continue to scramble for childcare, there's no apparent end to the action that's shaking up an entire state's public education ecosystem." Rebecca Garreley, organizer with the Arizona Educators United Group, told members Sunday evening in a Facebook video that the walkout is going to be a day-by-day operation moving forward, and educators should expect little notice on whether organizers plan to keep pushing walkouts for another day. "We are waiting and watching. That is the nature of the fight we are in," Garreley said. Reporters Kayla White, Lauren Castle, Ricardo Cano, Rebecca Sanders and Dustin Gardner contributed to this article. Follow Lily Altavina on Twitter at Lilyalta.